You're on.
Hello, everybody. This is Mike and Muskie. Little takeoff Mike and the Mad Dog for those who used to remember the old WFAN show. Glad to see everybody. Hope you checked out me and Mike last night on Instagram. We did like a little live thing. A couple people joined us. Talked a little Justice League. A little bit about poor Mr. Biden, President Biden falling. Had a good convo. Talked a little bit about some current events, and we're glad to see everybody. Hope you enjoyed last week's episode. Keep clicking the subscribe button, and definitely spread the word. We'll kick it off to Mr. Mike. Big Mike, what do you got today?
First, what's up, Chris? What's going on? Hope everyone's doing okay. Like Chris said, thanks to all the fans. Like, subscribe. Big thing, share the show. If you know someone that's not listening, share the show. We're just trying to get the word out there. We don't charge anything. There's no Patreon for the show or anything like that. We have no paywall. Hey, who knows? Maybe down the road, if we do get a ton of subscribers, maybe we'll start doing that. But right now, we want to keep it free for everyone. We want to keep it free for all the fans. So please like, subscribe, share the show. That's a big thing. One person shares the show. If one person that listens to the show shares the show, pretty soon we got a very big audience. And we just want to thank everyone who sticks with us, listens, and is a fan of the show. Basically, what did we have this week? We had the Grammys this week. And I mean, who really gives a shit anymore? I mean, the Grammys, what did they say? The ratings were down like 50% from last year's show.
Crazy. I think we're a little about a week late to the party. I think it happened last week, but we were talking like me and Mike were looking at the numbers. I'm a big sports fan, as is Mike, with the beautiful giant fleece that he's wearing tonight. I think the ratings across the board for like these shows and these sporting events are down tremendously. And, I can't figure it out. I guess we'll get into it in a little bit, as far as the details, but the numbers staggering, man. Like, I think the Grammys are off 50% or 60% year over year. Yeah. I was reading some stuff about the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl was like the lowest rated Super Bowl since 2006, had 90 million viewers. The Stanley Cup Finals last year was down like 60% year over year. The NBA down 50%. All these award shows and all these like sporting events. I mean, I can't figure it out. I can't attribute it as, in terms of like, are people tuning off to this stuff because they're just turned off about the activism and the message that goes along with it? Or is it just a case of people cutting the cord and doing other things and viewing stuff a little bit differently? It's hard to gauge, but the Grammys is pretty interesting. I didn't really check it out other than, what I saw in clips, and I saw a couple things, about Bill Burr or whatever the hell his name is, the comedian.
Yeah, Bill Burr was on, and he like butchered a couple of names and made a little joke, and people kind of went nuts about it. And it wasn't even a real, like, when he came out on stage, he came out to some guy playing like a piano solo.
Right.
I saw it on, it's up on YouTube now. You can go find it. And it was like this very somber music and very like, it was almost depressing, the music he came out to. And when he walked out, he just said, "Am I the only one that wanted to kill himself after listening to that?" And there was no one there, but you could hear like the cast and crew, crew laughing a little bit. And then all he did after that was just butcher a girl's name. He couldn't pronounce a girl's name. And that was it. And people are going nuts about it, and
yeah.
There was a tweet, some guy tweeted out saying, Bill Burr's wife is black.
Right.
And saying, you could still be racist and married to a black girl. And a lot of racists hide their racism by marrying black women. And I thought,
right. Versa, I mean, I've seen it both ways. People are interracially married, or, they're with people of different cultures and stuff. And they say crazy shit. And like their get out of jail free card is like, well, listen, I'm married to a black person, or I'm married to a white guy, or blah, 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 however you want to call it. And it's like, oh, well, you can't attack me because look who my partner is.
Yeah, but Bill, Burr's wife actually had a nice comeback for the guy and just said, "Bitch, shut the fuck up." So I guess she's defending her man. One of the funniest though, like we're talking about the ratings, this strikes me as like one of the funniest ratings drops ever. Since Trump left office, CNN's ratings are down 47%. And
Yeah,
I
man.
mean, to me, that's like they basically helped kill their golden cow.
We were talking about this, like, I think in yesterday's show or maybe off air, about the funniest, not so much the funniest president, but I guess not even so much the guys, how they get portrayed in Saturday Night Live, but who's the funniest president over the last 50 years as far as being made fun of and for comedic value? Is it Trump? Is it Nixon? Is it Jimmy Carter? Is it Gerald Ford? Reagan, Bush, Clinton. Obama, I think, kind of got, he was one of those guys that I think fell into a gray area in terms of, I don't think people went after him, and I don't think he offered much comedic value. But, it's interesting, I saw the president fall yesterday, and, we were talking about it during the Instagram thing. And I'm almost think like he could be the gift that keeps on giving, like all things aside. I hope nothing happens to the guy in terms of his health. I think it would be really, really bad for the country. But in terms of the comedy value, I just think that he could be GOAT, when it comes to comedic value and, jokes.
Yeah, he's definitely got those like Gerald Ford vibes now, falling up the stairs.
Really did. Like, I wanted to laugh at it. Some of the memes were freaking hysterical, with like Kamala Harris, like, giggling behind a tree, like rubbing her hands, like president, that type shit. Some of it was funny, but it's like, he's like our parents' age, a little bit older. And it's like, I see, it's not funny on some level. It is funny.
People out there that got parents his age that are in like nursing homes. There's people his age in nursing homes, man. That's, that guy I don't think he should have nuclear codes at this point. If you're that old, and there's all these, like, you could go down the rabbit hole with conspiracy theories on them too. Like a lot of them where like earpiece, they have the earpiece in, so someone's feeding them information. They said, Bush did it. They say Bush had one in during the debates when he was running for president. I'm sure he had one. Then there was that whole thing the other day with his hand in the microphone thing, and he's behind a green screen. Are they trying to make it out that he's not even talking to the press? Was that what the whole thing? The whole thing they said got debunked, and they said it wasn't special effects or anything like that.
The same thing happened to Trump. They said that he was doing the same thing, like he was staging where he was, and that got debunked too. So I don't buy too much credence into it. It's just that you really don't see a lot of the guy, and when you do see him, he seems to be stumbling a lot in terms of words. You get the shit that happened yesterday. And then the guy who on the live stream yesterday was talking about, I wasn't aware of it. You mentioned the stuttering problem. I think he had an aneurysm, according to what that link was, which I didn't know.
Yeah.
And my mother-in-law, God rest her soul, had one years ago. She was never right afterwards. She was like 73 when it happened.
Uh-huh.
That kind of would explain a lot of the shit that's, probably occurring with the guy. And again, it's not a funny situation, but going back to the whole point that you made with Trump and the ratings being down, I just think that some of these news organizations are so hesitant to go after a Democratic president the way that they do a Republican president. It's almost, if you're not going to go after the president, whoever he is, I think a big audience that you have, goes by the wayside. And, when you don't have Trump to pick on you every day, whether you like him or hate him, I could very easily see how your ratings are down 50%. I think the same deal with the Daily News. Like every day, like you opened up the Daily News, it was some sort of story about Trump. And it's like, look, I get it. You dislike the guy, but on the flip side, there's no other news going on in New York City other than the president, or if the president fought, so and does this. It got ridiculous.
Yeah. But, yeah. It's like, I watch CNN pretty much every day. I'll flick back and forth, see what's going on. And a lot of times I wind up on CNN. And if you watch it now lately, they realize since like they killed their golden cow. They killed the golden calf by helping get Trump out of office. They didn't realize it. And they're starting to attack all the Democrats now that they have on their show. They had on a female senator. I think she was either from California or Texas, maybe. And they were talking about the border crisis. And she started blaming Trump. And the reporter actually went after her and said, it's too late now. This is a new administration. We're almost 100 days in. Nothing is being done there. And she was like, well, Trump did this. Well, Trump did. Too late, baby.
He's out.
It's your ball now. The ball's in your court.
Right.
The buck is stopping with you. And I mean, like I said, dude, we do this podcast. We try not to go left. We try not to go right. You call it down the middle. But listen, if you're a Democrat now, the ball's in your court and you the man. So
I don't look at that, Mike.
They're gonna, they're in charge now.
Yeah.
So everything that happens from now on is on them. You can't go back. You can't keep going back and blaming the last guy. You're gonna blame the last guy 3 years into this guy's presidency? I mean, what are you gonna do?
Going back to like the opening monologue thing about the Grammys and stuff and these sporting events being down. So it's like, on one token, like, and again, putting aside politics, whatever side, people lay on, right, left, Democrat, Republican, there comes a time where, you want to turn on a show or a sporting event. You just don't want to be bothered with politics one way or the other. You don't want to be bombarded with it. I'm a big sports fan, but I got to be honest with you. I've watched a lot less sports than I have in the last couple of years. You want to call it as a result of the activism, where I lean politically. I just don't watch it as much. And the reason being is like when I turn on a football game, I don't want to be bombarded with, any sort of message, left, right, whether it's good or not, whether I agree with it or not. I don't want to be bothered with that. If I want that, I'll turn on to CNN. Mm-hmm. And I think with CNN turned from like being a news organization, same thing with Fox and all fairness, to like all of a sudden it's like a shill organization for one political party or the other. Like it seems Fox is like towards the Republicans, and then the CNN is geared towards the Democrats. You turn on like an election. Like I remember watching the Bush re-election in 2004, and I remember watching like simultaneously I was flipping back and forth between the simulcast, and like one show it looked like a fucking party, and the other it looked like a morgue, and I'm like. Reporting the same shit. I mean, your news organizations. I mean, what are you like, Al Jazeera? Are you like the political arm of these places? And
you don't have factual news. It's not news reporting anymore. It's opinion reporting.
Right.
That's all we have now. I mean, you can watch. What is it? You turn on CNN during the week. You get Anderson Cooper, Don Lemon, and who is it? Cuomo's brother.
Right.
You get three guys. You think any of them had positive things to say about Trump?
Oh, not at all.
And the same thing, you got Hannity and then all those other shows. And that was, the country's great. And now, like we said, we talked about this last week, how everything flip-flopped. And now when I turn on Fox, we're stages away from World War III with China, and they're going to be the new superpower and take this country over. So.
And I look at the entertainment industry as a whole, and I look at those numbers, Mike, and I'm like, all right, how much is it attributed to like people turning off this stuff because of the message, like, we're insinuating, or are people like doing other shit? Are like they cutting the cord? Are they watching things differently? I mean, listen, let's face facts. We talked about the Super Bowl. It was an abysmal show. I don't think I've watched an award show in like literally 2 or 3 years minimum, maybe longer. Only reason being, I mean, I'm a music guy, so like I turn on and I watch the musical shows a lot, the Grammys and stuff. But, to be honest with you, a lot of that stuff I tuned out because it's just like, the best analogy I can make is I don't mind people being political in the entertainment industry, but there comes a level where like the expectation is you get either the entertainment or both entertainment and a political message. And I'll give you an example. I love The Clash. They're my favorite band, punk rock band, very political band. I like Public Enemy back in the day, very political band. When I went to a show, I expected to hear politics, and U2 is another great example. Great band, but he had a habit of introducing his politics into the music and into the show. No problem at all. However, when you go into a band, I'll give you another example. When you go see Britney Spears, the last thing you expect from a Britney Spears show is at the end of her show, her going on a diatribe about how
the industrial military complex.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think some of these shows, I mean, I think it's the decline could be attributed to the activism and the political messages. But I also think that there's an element like, that we were talking about off air in terms of like people just cutting the cord and watching different stuff. Yeah. I mean, or viewing it differently. It's hard to.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right with that. I think it's definitely a mixture of both. Where, I mean, since I got all these streaming channels on, I barely watch cable TV. And if I do watch it, I might turn on like the local news quick, or if there's a game on that I want to watch. That's pretty much it. Other than that, it's like, oh, what's I can catch any show I want. I can DVR whatever I want if there's something on
Yeah.
regular cable that I want to watch, and everything else is on a streaming service. So
yeah,
I heard someone say this the other day. This guy Andy Fiore, who's been on the show, he's on the DYM podcast. Him and Sean Donnelly, go check that show out. Great show. And he said the best thing now when he watches like the Academy Awards, he just watches till they announce the winner, and then he goes, "I change the channel," and then I change back to when they announce the next winner. He goes, "Because I don't want to hear your bullshit."
right.
And it's true. No one wants it. You fucking. They're millionaires that play pretend. Musicians, actors, whatever. You play pretend. You play children's games. Athletes, it's the same way. You play children's games and you make millions of dollars. Just fucking be humble about that shit and fucking walk away, man. Take your statue and go home.
I'm not a huge fan of him, Mike, but I'll tell you what, the message that he delivered last year in a nutshell, just explain what you said.
Yeah, Ricky Gervais. Yeah, he's great with that.
Come up, get your award, and fuck off.
Yeah.
Give you a little speech and fuck off.
Yeah.
But it's just hard to gauge. Is it that? Is it people fed up with that shit? I mean, but like these numbers are like really, really bad, bro. I mean, like at the end of the day, I mean, that Super Bowl is the lowest rated thing, and it really got great ratings compared to everything else on television. But you just would expect with everybody at home, for the most part, during COVID, during the pandemic, you'd be turning on, more and more of this stuff, whether it be sports, it be movies. And it just seems like, especially the sports and the award shows, they're down tremendously.
Yeah, I mean, I'll play devil's advocate in the one set. Like, I'll go back to the streaming services and play. All right, let's just say this pandemic was 20 years ago.
Right.
20 years ago, I couldn't, and I'll just using examples. 20 years ago, I couldn't turn my TV on and watch, an entire episode of, the entire series of Breaking Bad, or the entire The Walking. I can catch up on all the Walking Dead or whatever. Pretty much any show you want to watch. 20 seasons of Law and Order SVU is on Hulu if you want to watch it. Plus the original, that was another 20-year show. I mean, you could just sit there and rank out shows.
I'll give you an example. I'm a big sporting fan, right? So are you. So usually every year I do the NCAA brackets. Usually I turn it on. I'd have it on now, to be honest with you. I probably wouldn't be doing the show. I'd be watching the shows or in a bar with one of my friends, watching and betting the games. Every year, the guy that I work for, he does a challenge where basically if you pick a perfect bracket, the first 49 games or 46 games, whatever it is, you get $1 million for life. If you mess up once or if nobody picks a perfect bracket, the person who goes the longest without effing up, they get $100,000 up front. So this is usually a big thing. Outside the Super Bowl, I know this is the biggest betting, in sports in the country, during the calendar year. And I got to be honest with you, I haven't turned on one game this year. It started yesterday. I didn't do a bracket for the first time in God knows how long.
Wow.
And I haven't turned on the television, and it's not because, these guys are activists or anything. It's just that I have no desire to do it. It's just weird, So again, like saying what you're saying, I guess there are other things, some of it is quality time with your family. Like think about how much time you spent with your family, sat down with dinner, you're not distracted. I think there's a lot of things that go on. But again, I don't think it explains the huge, huge drop off some of these shows and these events have had.
I can't wait to see something in about probably like 10, 15 years down the road. I'm sure like psychiatrists and therapists are there's definitely going to be studies done about how this last year affected people for either the rest of their lives, the next 10 years of their lives. I mean, think about someone who grew up in Iowa and then moved to New York. And then it was your life is shut down.
Yeah.
And you were cut off. You're living by yourself and now you're cut off. And your family's however many 1,500, 2,000 miles away from you.
My wife's in the mental health industry and she talks about it all the time. Suicide rates are through the roof. People are really messed up. A lot of people can't cope with it, as far as being cut off. Things completely different. It's really bad for the kids. Think about the kids for a second, or how many kids that you're on, home from school and not in a real school, interacting with people, proms disrupted, all sorts of stuff. And again, I know it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but for some, it is.
Just have little things. Yeah, the little things just get, like you said, prom, whatever, baseball, little league, soccer, whatever your kids were doing, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, whatever you were doing was shut down. People that just wanted to go to gyms every day. I remember, right. I know people that were just going online trying to buy gym equipment for a year, and then everything was price gouging.
Absolutely. But as far as we talked about that. We talked about the cord cutting, the pandemic, people doing other stuff. You also got to, you go back to the activism stuff for a second as well, in terms of like why these things are down so much. So I just explained to you, some of it I can't explain as far as why I'm not watching it. I talk about cancel culture, right? We talk about that every now and then. I think you see a lot of hypocrisy going on in these events too, and the messages that they deliver. It's like, okay, cancel Dr. Seuss because he's saying racist shit in his books, but the rapper Cardi B, who I happen to like, she's got good music, is talking about WAP, which I'm not, for the audience, going to go into, for the PG audience out there, but it's not the nicest acronym, if you catch my drift. So here you are, you're condemning one form or type of media, but the other is right in your face, and she's grinding and saying all sorts of crazy shit, on an award show.
Yeah, and like the same way you can even take that back. You go back to like Cuomo with that, where the left was constantly believe all women, and then this came out, and even what was her name, Kristen Gillibrand, the junior senator from New York. It took her over a month to finally say, like, yeah, I guess we should do something about this. But she was right on top when, that guy Kavanaugh was getting confirmed for the Supreme Court. Everyone was up that guy's ass. And these same people kind of like just put their head in the sand for this for a while until it actually grew momentum. And I think it's up to like 7 or 8 accusers now for the governor. And now they actually have to come out and say something, or they're going to look like idiots.
Well, the other thing is, I read something the other day, I think we maybe brought it up off air, about, in 2024, for the next award shows for the movies, you have to have some sort of qualifications, and you have to meet some sort of qualification in order for your movie to be, I guess, considered for an award. You have to have a certain quota of like different cultures and different races in your movie, which again, I think is great. But, on the flip side, you're really making people conform to a certain, I guess, standard in order to be considered, for these award shows, which, to be honest with you, I mean, I think it's great. I'm all for it. But, when it comes to art and entertainment, you can't limit people in terms of expressing themselves, or
you can't conform art. You can't conform art. But on the flip side of that, in 2024, I hope Medea Goes to Jail Part 2 sweeps the Academy Awards. Or Big Mama's House 4. I'll go see that.
Big Mama's House 4. I don't think
Is it 4 or is it 3 or 4? I know they did 2. So maybe 3 or 4, whichever one. But I'll go see it. But I mean, you can't just make it out like you have to have this in your movie, or we're not going to consider you for anything. Like you said, you can't conform. I mean, and it's in front of the camera as well as behind the camera. But I noticed too, someone said with it that it really didn't get into like the higher ups of the movie industry. Like I think the production and directors, it's going to have nothing to do with that. So basically the people that control Hollywood are still going to control Hollywood, so it's pulling puppet strings and trying to make people happy. That's all it is.
It's just weird. It's just weird how the numbers are down so big. And look, I get things and how we digest stuff, and the options that you have to entertain yourself are completely different than when we were kids. I mean, I remember being your baiting Hollow House back in like the late 80s or mid 80s, watching the Mets on a Connecticut broadcast station with the little rabbit ears television that you guys. I remember there was a time where you had the NFL basically on Sundays. It was the Jets and the Giants. You had Monday Night Football, and that was it. And now you have it basically every day of the week for all intents and purposes, especially for those who play fantasy sports. I can tell you my preparation for the following week just doesn't stop. I watch the games on Sunday, and, I'm watching Sunday night, I'm watching Monday, and it just goes on and on and on. It just never stops. So Listen, I do think there's an element of the options and how you digest stuff is different. And that probably leads to the decline in the ratings. But some of these things, I mean, you're talking year over year stuff in the middle of the pandemic. And you begin to wonder, is it a pandemic? Is it the activism? Is it the messages? Is it a case of you, like you said, binge watching stuff or doing other shit with your family? You would just think, though, in the middle of a pandemic, again, regardless of what you're doing and what options that you have, that instead of these numbers being up or tremendously down, at the very least, they'd be stagnant. And it's across the board, man. It's not just one thing.
Yeah.
Now, you would think it maybe might be the NFL for like, the flag anthem stuff, or the NBA, same stuff. But hockey was down. I mean, I know they walked out last summer. I mean, but even so.
Yeah, but no one cares about hockey anymore.
Nobody cares. I mean, right?
Hockey's just one of those sports. It's like, it's there.
It's sad, though. And
it is. No, I know, you and a bunch of the guys we went to school with loved hockey. I never got into it, and I could give a shit if hockey left or not. But it does show that across the board number of everything's dropping off.
Right.
And like you said, I can DVR a hockey game tonight and watch it 3 days later and not give it, if I don't give a shit who won or lost, I just want to watch the game, then I'll do that. So
the numbers are really, really big. And I watched that number and I'm like, wow, 50%, 60%. That's huge, man. That's half your audience.
Yeah. Well,
speaking
of like things getting canceled or things going away, I mean, we were talking about this too. We were talking about how like genres of movies are kind of gone. And like one of the biggest genres that have disappeared over like the last 30 years or so is like the Western.
Yeah.
And we were trying to figure out like over the last 30 years, like some of the best Westerns since like, let's say since 1990. So what is it? Yeah. So 30 years, 31 years. Tweet us out, Crack House Pod, that what you think the best Western since 1990 is, or your list. You could give us 4 or 5, whatever you want to do. And we were talking about it, and we thought like, as we were going down the list, I think it kind of like stretches a little, and then we got into like some TV stuff, but I guess we could start off maybe Unforgiven. We'll start out like with like one of the earliest ones. Like Unforgiven I thought it was amazing. The guy Clint Eastwood killed it at the Academy Awards actually that year.
Yeah. Won a whole bunch of Academy Awards. So me and Mike were talking about, I actually brought it up to him. I'm like, there was probably a revival of Westerns like in the late 80s, early 90s, Young Guns and
Silverado,
right? Pale Rider.
Yeah.
And it seems like over the last, I would say 15 to 20 years, the whole genre has taken a shit. I mean, you've had some big movies over the last 15, 20 years. I looked it up. You want to consider Brokeback Mountain a big Western? I mean, I guess, not my cup of tea, but it is technically a Western.
Yeah, I guess you call it a Western. It's not a period piece Western, but it's a modern Western.
Yes.
All right, we'll call it that.
The Django Unchained, which I never saw. It was more of like a parody with Leonardo DiCaprio.
I saw the Django Unchained. I liked it, but I don't consider it a Western. I consider more like Hateful Eight a Western out of like those. If you're going to give me those two movies, I mean, I saw the Django Unchained on one of those lists, and I was like, I don't consider it a West. It takes place in the South. It's not out West. It's more that's Hateful Eight is out in like middle America, out in no man's land. And it's all these guys that are like Civil War generals and bounty hunters. That's a fucking great movie. That's a great Western.
Right.
The Django is just more like a Southern period piece. That's a great, by another great movie.
That's why I figured I'd bring it up. I don't know if it is the best, or, as far as it is a Western or not, but I did see it in a couple of lists. I saw Brokeback Mountain, which again, technically is. I saw the Old Country, the Old Men.
Yeah, No Country for Old Men. I saw has made a couple of those lists. I get if you're gonna expand the genre, I guess, to like modern Westerns, then yeah, I guess you could throw in movies like that. The same way Back to the Future 3 is on a couple of these lists.
Right.
And like it is a technically same thing, technically a Western, but I don't ever classify it as a Western. It's part of a trilogy of movies that just happens to take place in the Old West, the third one.
And I think also, like, some of the actors that had huge I guess a lot of roles in the Western genre, they don't exist anymore. Like you have other actors that kind of delve into it, like, Kevin Costner with Dances with Wolves, that kind of shit. These guys aren't known to be Western actors because the genre.
What did he do after? He did Wyatt Earp after that. That movie
Yeah.
was horrible. Like
So
Tombstone was 1,000 times better.
Yes.
That movie is awesome. That's probably the best Western I've seen in like the last 30 years.
You know what I completely forgot about, Mike, talking about it, and maybe the genre isn't dead. Maybe it is. We're mentioning a lot of movies that have been made over the last 20 years. Maybe they're not like John Wayne type flicks or like, old Clint Eastwood, like The Good, Bad, and the Ugly type stuff. But, there has been a lot that we just mentioned. How about, actually, it's a pretty favorite of mine, a big favorite of mine, because I'm a big fan of him. The assassination of Jesse James by the coward Bob Ford.
I never saw that.
Dude, it's phenomenal. It really is a good movie. And, I mean, maybe it's because I like Brad Pitt. I think he's a freaking, comedic genius. All things aside, I know the ladies out there love him and shit. But I watched that, and I'll tell you what, who stole the show was Ben Affleck's brother, who plays Bob Ford. So if you have a chance, check it out. I think the guy from not The Departed, the Town. Did you ever see The Town with Ben Affleck?
Yeah.
Jeremy, guy who plays
Jeremy Renner.
He's in it. There's a couple. It's got a really good cast. There's a couple guys that they're not big actors, but like if you got a chance to check it out, it's a pretty good flick. And if you like Westerns, I think you would enjoy it. And that even being said, like the movies that we're mentioning, whether you consider them Westerns or not, they still don't add up to like The Unforgiven. They don't add up to any of those classic John Wayne films, the Clint Eastwood films, even the Young Guns for that matter. I mean, think about that for a second.
I think they were just talking about rebooting that somehow, or Young Guns 3. I just saw something like that online. I liked it. I liked the first one. The second one, I thought had that nice little twist to it with, Billy the Kid still alive and all that. And he's supposed to be. That's one of those, but it's like urban legend where no one, I think it's one of those things that really can't be proven.
No, it's a true story. Bushy Bill actually existed. So the two guys.
Billy. I'm saying Billy the Kid. Weren't they saying it was Billy the Kid?
What they're saying is Billy the Kid survived it, and they staged his death.
Mm-hmm.
So there were two guys that were claiming to be him. One guy got debunked, but Bushy Bill, the guy in the movie, allegedly the story goes in the 1950s. I guess he came out and he basically confessed. He goes, "I'm Billy the Kid. I've been living in, basically hiding for the last 50 plus years." And I guess what happened was he was old. He was like in his 90s, which kind of would have corresponded with Billy the Kid's age. He answered all the questions. There were people, I guess, of that time period that was still alive at the time that identified him. They're like, yeah, that's Billy the Kid. And then I guess he got subpoenaed. And about a week before he was supposed to go to the subpoena, the guy basically had a stroke and he died. He was like in the middle of the street. He just had a fucking heart attack and that was it. And he never got a chance to really go to the subpoena. But it's a true story, and there's actually some validity to it, to the point where I think they wanted to exhume the guy's body to get DNA testing. And I guess the ancestors didn't want it. And I also think that the New Mexico governor didn't want it because it's a huge tourist attraction. So they got the graves in Mexico. For our friend Rob out in Arizona from the Boy Scouts, might want to check it out. It's a pretty cool site, if you're into that sort of stuff. But apparently the governor of New Mexico objected too, because he figured that if it was proven that that wasn't Billy the Kid, the whole tourist.
The money he would lose. All right.
So, listen, probably bullshit, but I did read about it. I'm a big history and Western buff, and there is some validity to it.
All right. I mean, for me, like I said, I liked Tombstone. I thought it was a great movie. And I actually did some like research on it. I was like looking it up, and a little known fact, they say Kurt Russell directed a majority of that movie. They hired a director.
Okay.
And whatever it was, he wasn't jiving or whatever. It wasn't working out. And if the movie wasn't being done the way they thought it should be done, and I think it was like his first film, and he just couldn't handle it. Too many people involved, too many moving parts. And they said Kurt Russell stepped in and he directed like a majority of those scenes in the movie. And he just never took credit for it. He was like, listen, it's his first movie. I'm just going to help him out. And
man, I got to check it out. I'm a big Western guy. There were a couple others I wanted to mention to you too. Like I said, it's not completely dead. You had 3:10 to Yuma with Russell and Christian Bale. I think was that the same one? No, that was a different one with Sharon Stone, right?
Oh, Quick and the Dead. Yeah. Back with Russell Crowe. He was kind of like a nobody, I think, in that one. Or like
that was in his career.
Either like right before LA Confidential came out.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Or like right as it was coming out. Another one, a recent one, it was a independent film and it's with Kurt Russell. It's called Bone Tomahawk. It is brutal.
I checked that out.
That's my buddy Jack turned me on. I saw a trailer for it, and then my buddy Jack, he saw it and he goes, "Watch this movie," and I caught it on one of the streaming channels, and it was sick, very brutal, very much showing how, it doesn't paint Indians in a good light in the movie.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Real, people getting scalped in the movie. There's some real brutal scenes in it. Real good movie though. Go check it out, Bone Tomahawk.
You know what I wasn't a big fan of? The new True Grit. Did you see that?
Yeah, with what's his face? Bridges?
Yeah, horrible, bro. I'm not a big Jeff Bridges fan, but I watched that. I'm like, I think it was okay on some level, but it's just like John Wayne's, that's John Wayne's.
I mean, that's like anything. When we talk about like remakes, and I'll tell you right, I've never seen what's his face? Steve Martin in any of the Pink Panther movies. I refuse.
Oh.
I refuse to watch that.
No, absolutely not.
That was Peter Sellers from the get-go. You can't, Steve Martin's funny in his own right. I give Steve Martin all it, but he's not Peter Sellers, man.
Want to hear a funny story about Steve Martin? So we're talking about famous people. Last night, me and Mike were talking a little bit about, some of our interactions in the Boy Scouts with, famous people we encountered, like Joe Paterno or Ben Vereen. And talking about Steve Martin. Steve Martin lived in a building where my brother worked on the Upper West Side. And my brother hates his guts. And basically, if you work in these residential buildings with these celebrities, basically what happens is at the end of the year, they tip you out, whether you're an elevator operator or a doorman. Any of the building staff usually gets tipped out by the people. And because these people are rich, they usually give them a good chunk of change. It's not uncommon for these guys to get a couple $1,000s from them. And some guys walk away, 20, 30 grand at the end of the year on top of their salary.
Yeah, so, that's the old doorman, people, that's why people used to love getting in that union. I know plenty of guys that were in that union. They were like, Christmas time,
right? So anyways, Martin lives in an apartment in my brother's building on the Upper West Side. And come around, I guess, Christmas time, they're handing out the checks. Everybody opens their checks, and the wild and crazy guy gives my brother and the staff $10 a pop. And my brother's like, this guy's a fucking I mean, fuck him, the wild guy. What a dick. It's Christmas Eve, and here you are giving $10. You're worth millions of dollars. You're picking up shit all throughout the year, and it's like, this is what you get. My brother freaking hated his guts, man. To this day, like if you ask like he fucking hates him, bro. He's like, he's a fucking dick, man. Of all the guys, $10, and like he walked around like he was doing them like a big favor and shit, according to my brother. Like, oh, look at me, blah blah. And anytime his name comes up, Jason has a shit fit, bro. He hates his on that. But wanted to mention that so many people we ran across in those buildings. For the most part, they were cool people, but once in a while you come across somebody and talking about Martin and stuff that you brought him up. I figured I'd bring that story up, and my brother's disdain.
Wow, what a dick move.
$10, bro.
$10.
And think about all the shit that these people do for them all year. Like they basically garbage out. They protect them. They run their errands. They basically bring their packages up. They do everything for them. If there's anything wrong with their apartment, they're up there in a freaking heartbeat. You know, those staffs are really underrated. Like they're worth every penny. I'm sure anybody who lives in those buildings will tell you that.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, for them to do that, for that guy to do that shit, I mean, it's like the old Reservoir Dogs movie. You know, when the guy's talking about tipping the waitress and shit, and he's like, I don't. You know, what do you mean you don't tip? He goes, the violin. This is the smallest violin in the world, playing for all the waitresses in the world. I don't tip. And you know,
well, a lot of people say that, man. That's why the rich stay rich sometimes. You know, they don't part with their money.
Common decency, though. I mean,
wow. You think he'd be a cool guy?
Think he did, but as my brother says, the wild and crazy guy, dickhead.
That sucks, man. What a letdown when you hear about guys like that.
Shows like when he said it to me, I had the same thing that you said. I'm like, you know, I remember him from the what was the movie where he's like walking the dog and acting like the big movie that he had like in 1980, 1981.
Oh, not The Jerk.
The Jerk, right?
Yeah.
The Jerk, and the old Saturday Night Live skits and stuff, the Pink Panthers and shit, like you mentioned. Dickhead, complete dickhead.
Wow. Fuck him.
One more thing I like to throw out. So we were talking about Sharon Stone and Russell Crowe. Did you read today how allegedly she's now claiming that the scene in Basic Instinct, you know, the famous scene where her pride is showing, she claims that she was duped and she didn't know that was going to happen.
See, she said that years ago too. Like, I didn't know. Come on. Who you kidding? I think she's kind of full of shit a little bit. You're going to tell me the director wasn't going to tell her that, like, here's the shot? I mean, they look at the scenes every day that they shoot. How did she not know? How did she not know that was going to happen? I mean, I'm not bashing her.
No,
really at all, but come on. That movie made you a millionaire how many times over?
Right.
And your career is, you know, take it with a grain of salt, Sharon. Jeez.
She also said, what the hell did she bring up? I saw something to the effect of, she said one of the producers or directors forced her to sleep with a co-star. Well, I think it might have been Basic Instinct, you know, like a real raunchy scene. She's like, yeah, we actually had intercourse and I was forced to do it, you know? So she's coming out with a lot of stuff too. I'm sure she'll be in the news a little bit more.
But I see, you know, when you see with people like that, listen, she hasn't had a hit movie in how many years? She's been out of the public eye. I mean, she's in her 60s now or whatever, and she's been out of the public eye a long time. And it seems like these people, after a while, they need another way to get like famous again. And it's either like coming out with some outrageous shit that happened 30 years ago, so no one gets in trouble about it, or they become an activist and it's save the whales, no nukes, whatever the fuck it is, free this one from jail, or whatever type of bullshit they want to come out for, whatever the cause celeb of the day is. That's like, it's like, I have nothing to do. I still want to be famous. How can I be famous? Oh, let me get arrested at a peace rally.
Let me ask you this, and to all the men in the audience, women out there, I'm sorry about this, but who's the hottest over 60-year-old woman entertainer at this moment? And I'll give you 4 choices. 1 we talked about last night, Linda Carter. Number 2, Diane Lane, who I don't think she's 60 yet. Sharon Stone.
I'm gonna look up Diane Lane right now. Hold on.
Me and Mike were talking about the Justice League last night, and we were doing like a little review on the online thing about the Snyder Cut. And to me, like I'm watching Wonder Woman. I'm like, I'm not a big fan of the Wonder Woman movies. You know, she's not Wonder Woman. She's not as hot as Linda Carter was. Not that it means a big deal in the big grand scheme of things, but you know, I guess guys our age and people our age, you know, you have a certain idea of what a character should be. Like Superman should be Christopher Reeve, that type of thing. And I'm watching her and I'm like trying to contrast her to Linda Carter. And I'm like, there's no comparison. And it almost like ruins the movie for me. Like as I'm watching it, I'm thinking to myself, you know, it just doesn't do it for me. I mean, I'm not even being around. I'm just talking about just like in general, just the overall, you know, depiction of it. And, I just thought of this on a fly, as far as like I saw a picture of Sharon Stone, who doesn't look bad, for a 60-plus-year-old woman. I mean,
Diane Lane is 56, and I just found, and her mom was in Playboy.
Wow.
Her mom was Miss October of 1957. Who was
wow.
Colleen Price was the mother. Ooh.
And I think Linda Carter's got to be our parents' age, man. I think she's in her 70s at this point. Madonna's got to be early 60s, right?
Yeah, Madonna. Yeah, but she looks weird. Kind of. She's got like that. She's got like that old lady super workout body where she's all like veiny and muscly. I mean, God bless her, but I don't know. Madonna, I think I swipe left on.
Swipe left on?
Yeah, but always I don't know. Who? Oh, wait. Who did you have now? So wait, who did you have at over 60?
We had Sharon Stone. We had Linda Carter.
Linda Carter, definitely.
In her 70s. Diane Lane.
I got one.
Okay.
Jacqueline Smith. Charlie's Angels.
Yes. Okay. I'll take that.
I think what's her face? Like Kate Jackson, though, was in her 70s, I think. She's how
about Pam Grier? Somebody brought that up.
She's got to be in her 70s. Pam Grier, that's a swipe right.
And how about
the
from Jackie from 227? Remember her?
Oh, Jackie, yeah.
Jackie's
ooh, yeah. Right? Yeah, she's got to be, she's definitely up there.
I mean, I haven't seen her recently, but I guess she's got to be in the convo. I mean, if she maintained anything.
Jackie, hold on, let's see that.
Jackie, right?
Jackie Harry is oh yeah, she's definitely over 60. She is. Wait a minute, 64. Jackie is 64, and let's see this picture. Looks pretty recent. She looks good.
She looks good. Dude, Marla Gibbs. Remember Marla Gibbs, the maid from the Jeffersons? She's still alive. She's in like her 90s. I never realized she was that old.
I thought you were talking about Marla Maples for a second. Trump's ex-wife.
Oh, no. Her. I wonder if she's got to be in her 50s.
You know when 50. I worked Tower, right, in 94? So I had to move something in Trump's apartment, right? I was working in 32BJ, Trump Tower. And I guess my boss tells me, hey, look, you got to move something for Trump upstairs. And Trump's got at the time, he had the top two penthouses of Trump Tower devoted strictly to him. And they're like, there's a glass elevator between the two. Anyways, we had to do something in the guy's dining room, right? His dining room. We had to move a table or some shit. And in the dining room, it looked like something out of King Arthur's court. He had like a table that will probably span the size of most people's houses. And we had to move shit around and, bringing up Marla Gibbs. In this case, I thought you said Marla Maples. There was a huge picture, like a portrait, like a life-size portrait of Marla Maples that was like from the top of the ceiling to the floor. And it was just like, dude, this guy's out of his fucking mind. I mean, it was just like huge. I mean, it looked like one of those sports cutouts, the people that you put up on the wall and stuff.
He had a Marla Maples fat head on his wall.
Right. So I always remember that. I worked there, Well,
I mean, did you ever see, I remember we can all remember, if you're old enough, like when he hooked up with her, it used to be, remember the show A Current Affair?
Yeah.
It was like, it was like a National Enquirer TV show, basically. And all they ever kept showing when like he left Ivana for her, they kept showing her work. She was in like a workout aerobics video. And I mean, Marla Maples, we'll try and keep it PG, is very well endowed. And she had a little like 80s aerobic outfit on, and she was doing a lot of jumping. So you could figure it out. And they just kept showing that and showing that. So I can imagine him having a life-size. Was she like naked, being covered up like that?
No,
or, it was tasteful. It was a tasteful portrait.
Tasteful portrait. But I was just like, this is freaking a big portrait, bro. I mean, like it was like in the guy's dining room.
Hey, I mean, I've seen pictures of it on TV when they were showing that, and they said the same thing you said. It was like he lives like royal, like everything's like 14 karat gold faucets and all shit like that, and it looks very gaudy, kind of like he looks like he's like white trash with money, kind of.
if you had,
Dude,
you know.
I worked in the building, back in the day. I mean, I didn't meet him directly, but I worked for him. And I think I told you the story off camera where, basically my boss at 6:30 in the morning is like, there's a meeting in the lobby. And, I'm ready to punch in. He goes, put your coffee down, just come upstairs. So we go upstairs and I hear like this inhuman freaking screaming, you mother effers this, you mother effers that, like crazy levels. The guy was just like screaming at the top of his lungs. I got to like the doorway and I could see him and he's got a cigarette butt in his hands and he's screaming like a madman. Like, I'm like, is this guy like on coke or something? And I looked at my boss. I'm like, yo, is this guy serious? He goes, shut up, just be quiet. So he was screaming about how a cigarette butt was on the floor of Trump, the residential side of Trump Tower. You MFers, I pay you all this money and I saw this. I came out, I woke up this morning and I see this shit. And he's throwing it like in everybody's face, like, yeah. And he got us, like he didn't get into my face because I was like a row deep, from, the whole staff was there. But the thing that struck me is like the energy level of this guy, going back to like, it was like 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, the volume of this guy. I mean, it sounded like the guy was at a football game. And just the vulgarity. I was like, all right, bro. All right, it won't happen again. Sorry, but I know it wasn't directed at me because I didn't work the night before, but just found it interesting. And then that was the same summer that I met Michael Jackson. And, like I said, we had to do that little thing for him, like up in his penthouse where I saw the thing with Marlon Maples. But
let me ask you this, man, since you were talking about your brother and Steve Martin, how was he at Christmas time? Trump.
So Trump, you never saw, and Trump doesn't tip you. In the residential building, you got to remember. Well, maybe he does because at the end of the day, my father used to get me these jobs in these buildings where I'd be summer relief help. So I was gone by September.
Okay.
So I don't know what happened in those buildings, but I got to imagine, you probably got a decent penny from the guy. I don't know him specifically. I can't say one way or the other, but I think I probably would have got out if he's a shitty tipper. And that's a little bit of different story because he owns Trump Tower, where like some of these residential buildings, they're owned by the shareholders, meaning the people that live in. So like, for example, a building with Steve Martin, he's technically the owner of the building with 100 or 150 other, versus where Trump is the owner of Trump Tower. So, I guess you'd probably get tipped out by him and the people, I guess, if you worked in that building, but I just wasn't around come Christmas time to see it.
Right. I don't know. What else do we have? That looks like we're about, you got anything else?
No, we were just talking some stuff last night. I think we talked about the Justice League. We were talking about that a little bit, as contrasting that with the Avengers.
Yeah. We both saw it. What did you think?
It was okay. Like I said, some of the actors that, portray some of the characters kind of destroy it for me. I thought it was okay. It was a long ass movie. I didn't like the aspect ratio of it where it was like letterbox and stuff. It was okay. Again, it's like one of those things like Coming to America too, where, it's good. I'll check it out. But, if it was in the theaters, would I go pay $20 for it? Probably not,
Yeah. I'm kind of like you with that. And I'm also in the camp of, man, I'm not going to a 4-hour movie. I refuse. Like the same way, hey, everyone raved about The Irishman. I thought it was an okay movie. I didn't think it was that great. And if I would have had to sit 3.5 hours or 3 hours and 40 minutes in a movie theater to watch Joe Pesci nap at a call for like a 20-minute scene, I would have been pissed off. I wouldn't want to see it. And the same thing, we both love these comic book movies, but I'm not going to sit down in a theater for 4 hours to watch, it was a good movie. I will say that if you compared to the Josh Whedon cut to this cut, this movie crushes it out of the park. Definitely go see it. If you want to watch it in parts, it's actually in parts when you watch it. It goes up to like part 6. And then there's like, it's not a post-credit scene, but that last nightmare scene at the end. If you remember the nightmare scene from the first one, they expand on that and it's a completely different scene. And it's really good. But I would definitely go check it out. Check it out. You can watch it in bits and pieces if you want. It was a very good movie.
We got a couple things else to touch on. I'll do it real quick. Me and Michael were talking about the St. Patrick's Day movies last week. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Michael Collins movie, the conspiracy stuff with that. that came about, tied into General Patton. Maybe we'll save it for next week, but that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, the Michael Collins thing. I looked at it. I looked into the Michael Collins thing. If everyone remembers the movie Michael Collins, it was about Northern Ireland, about Ireland. Michael Collins was a politician trying to unite Ireland. He was in the IRA. He went over to England. He basically was the guy that gave up the 6 counties in Northern Ireland as kind of a peace deal, and was assassinated by like a faction member, a faction group of the IRA. They say the guy's name, I think, is Dennis O'Neill, is
right.
the shooter of him. But there's also a lot of conspiracy saying they think he got killed with a ricochet from a bullet. They don't think it was. They don't think it was. It might. They may have wanted to kill everyone in that car.
Here's the deal. So the background with him is you kind of hit it on the head with him, but it's one of my favorite St. Patrick's Day movies. Outside of maybe The Quiet Man and State of Grace and stuff. And again, I'm not Irish. My family is, my immediate family, other than me. I know you are, obviously. Basically, Michael Collins was a general. And I guess he was part of the Easter Rebellion. I don't know if you ever saw the backdrop of the Easter Rebellion, but that's a brutal fucking thing that happened. So basically what happened was the Irish rebelled on Easter Sunday. They held off the English for like 5 or 6 days. And I guess eventually they got overcome. And they rounded up all the top leaders of the IRA and all the top leaders of the Irish Army. Michael Collins was one. He was a general in it. And another guy, James Connolly, which the Dropkick Murphys and Black 47 do a great song about. Make a long story short, they round these guys up and they basically execute all the top leaders of the IRA, with the exception of Michael Collins was all the way in the back, and they knew he was a general, but somehow he got out of it. They didn't kill him. James Connolly was like a Union labor. Basically what happened when he got his leg blown off, and holding off the English, this guy was so messed up. Like the English, they tied him to a chair, they blindfolded him, and they shot him dead. It was really brutal shit. I mean, listen, I don't have a horse in it. I guess maybe I'm English, according to our Maltese ancestry, but some of the shit that you read about isn't great. But going back to Collins for a second, he was the general. He got out of the Easter Rebellion, unscathed. And then I guess at some point they were trying to make peace with England, and the Prime Minister of England, of Ireland, didn't want to go over to negotiate with the English. So he sent Collins over there. Collins came back. Like you said, he gave up the 6 counties. He's like, oh, I got a great deal for everybody. He goes, we don't have to go to war with the English. And they're all arguing with him, like, oh, what did you do? What did you do? And he's like, I avoided a war. He goes, they would have killed us in a war. He goes, well, what did you do? And he goes, I gave up the 6 counties, and that's Northern Ireland. And I guess some people on the IRA, like you said, on the factions, were pissed off. And, allegedly they were on like that windy road, kind of like Patton was, which, I would bring up at a future date. But allegedly they got ambushed. And like you said, that guy, Dennis O'Neill, allegedly is the shooter. There are a couple other things talking about how it was like a ricochet. Make a long story short, it was planned.
And he knew who he was. They had met earlier too, from what I read. Like they definitely knew each other, those 2 guys.
Right.
And,
it's in the southern part of Ireland too. I mean, for the Irish out there, I think it's like a mountainous area. My friend Joe, my friend Tony's friend, I think he talked about it. He goes to Ireland a lot on business and stuff in the UK. He was telling me it's a messed up area, in terms of like, how it winds. Almost like if you've been to California, like the Palisades Parkway and stuff, where it merges with the water.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty interesting story. I mean, for the Irish out there, really want to know the history of the Republic of Ireland. Pretty cool. And the whole conspiracy aspect of it is really messed up, with the, if it came to pass. And, for the music fans out there, if you want to check out the Black 47 or the Dropkick Murphys, they do songs about Michael Collins. There's a song called Big Fella for the Black 47 fans. And then they do a song called James Connolly, which is really, really good. So, when I do my St. Patrick's Day shows with the DJ stuff, those are always staples that I play. Actually, you might know the Big Fella song. You're a big fan of Sons of Anarchy, right?
Yeah.
When they went to Ireland?
Yeah.
Song in the beginning of the 3rd episode of the episode 1, that's Big Fella.
Oh, okay.
So if you go back and watch it, that's in there. And listen, there are a lot of St. Patrick's stuff. I was glad to see the parade go on. I know I got another buddy of mine who's friends with your buddy Chris, in the same fraternity. He's big with the Hiberians. I think the St. Patrick's Days went off, good this year. I know for the first time.
There was no parade in the city. They shut that down.
Did it? Or
Yeah. There was no parade. They had like some little bullshit stuff, but there was no parade. And it was like virtual.
It was virtual, right?
Yeah, it was all bullshit. I mean, hopefully next year, but this is the second year in a row of no parades of a parade that's been going on for like over 200 years. So
right.
Whatever.
And all the Irish out there, we got the Irish flag flying in front of 10 Oxford. So just to let you guys know, we got the Republic of Ireland flag in the wind.
All right. What do you got to plug? Anything?
Man, we do DJ Chris Clash. It's going to get real busy soon, guys. So put your bookings now. Check out the website. Do Cardinal Financial. Who I don't know if you want to mention his last name, but me and Michael got a buddy of ours who I think is running for state legislature in Suffolk County, 16 district. Our friend Manny from the Boy Scouts. You want to throw his last name out there, Mike, or no?
Yeah. You know what? We'll reach out to him first, see if he wants us to talk about it. And if he does, we'll mention it every show because Manny's a good, Manny's a good guy. So we'll definitely we'll talk to him. And if he wants us to talk about it, then we'll definitely mention his name on our show.
Okay, cool. And then La Familia, definitely check them out. Good people. And I was going to plug a bar up in near Yankee Stadium, but me and Mike, I think, talked about it yesterday. I think he's got enough business, but, maybe we'll throw his name out there at one point. We'll talk to Chris.
Yeah. See if he can write a check. Anyway, all I got is check out my buddy Jack. As always, I Can Paint, SOF Bad Monkey. And listen, please like, subscribe, share the show. We're trying to grow. We're trying to get better. Like I said, we're at Crack House Pod on Twitter, the Crack House Podcast _ between the words on Instagram. You can check out me and Chris on Facebook under our names, Chris Muscolino, Mike O'Sullivan. Hit us up. Let us know if there's anything you want to see on the show, anything different on the show. Let us know.
One more thing, guys. So for those who don't know how to subscribe, and my wife asked me about this, I'm sure my mother-in-law probably have some questions. I'm sure some people out there. When we say subscribe, when you go to the YouTube channel, there's a little bell in the upper right-hand corner. You got to click on it. And that gives us a subscriber. That shows us that you're following the show. The reason I'm bringing it up is my wife was oblivious to it. And my sister-in-law, Sandy, they're trying to follow it. They're like, how do we subscribe? How do we subscribe? So if there's anybody else out there that's not you savvy, that's how you subscribe.
And it's free. It's free.
We're just giving it all away.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Insane. Whatever happened to that? I wonder if he's still alive, the guy that did the commercials. The other guy went nuts, man. Oh, that could be we're talking about Crazy Eddie next week. Because that guy went cuckoo, like he went like fucking fled to Israel. Oh man, it was like a scam. That guy pulled a scam.
And I think we should make a whole nother segment next week. You just jogged my memory about him. The ShamWow guy.
Oh yeah.
Remember the ShamWow guy?
That was a guy caught with the tranny, right?
Yes.
Transsexual.
We did a whole segment on those guys. Those guys are priceless.
All right, so next week, Crazy Eddie, ShamWow, and whatever else we could think of.
Remember the guy who with the ShamWow? He's like, look, this Germans make it. It must be good. Oh no, that was a little greater thing. Remember?
The nuts. My nuts. Was that the guy in my nuts? It was the same guy. My nuts. ShamWow. No. The guy with the prostitute was that skinny white dude.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. He did ShamWow and the nuts. Remember, he crushed the nuts. He goes, "You're gonna love my nuts. You're gonna love my nuts."
Yes.
That guy.
Dude, we definitely got to talk about that stuff next week.
All right. Next week, Crazy Eddie, ShamWow, and whatever else we got. As always, thanks for tuning in. Listen, tomorrow, this comes out on Sunday, Monday morning. Attack the world like you're a 1998 blockbuster, and nothing can stop you. Bye-bye.
Aaron Go Bra.